am here with Akash Passey, Senior Vice President of Volvo Bus Corporation. Great to have you with us. And we are, of course, discussing whether or not AI is going to render traffic gridlock an unpleasant memory. Now, I have to say, it is pretty good in Singapore. I mean, it's not like Los Angeles or anything like that, but you are in this testing phase, of course, of an autonomous electric bus, which can take about 80 passengers. Now, before we get to that conversation, I do want to bring up the panel question that you can vote throughout. And our panel question for the day is, what impresses you most, and this is you, the audience, about the future of autonomous driving? Is it A, an expected reduction in traffic, lower impact to the environment, the ability to work while driving to the office, or efficient transportation of goods? So if you can just think of that and vote while Akash and I are talking. Now, Akash, Singapore's first on-demand driverless shuttle bus actually launched last week, not a Volvo product, but on Sentosa Island. And I was reading that one of the biggest obstacles was actually pigeons getting in the way of that bus. So not so much whether or not it could stop, not so much whether or not it could brake in time. Tell us, though, about this 7900 electric bus that you are in a testing phase with the NTU, and how it's going to be driven out, pardon the pun, here in Singapore.
Well, Juliette, before I get to that part, let me just state how we got here.
Yeah.
So I think with over 90 years of experience as Volvo Group in the field of trucks, buses, construction equipment, industrial and marine engines, we are driven by our values of quality, safety and care for the environment. With whatever we do in these three areas to improve it further is something which is very exciting to it. To give an example, in 1957, Volvo did not take IP rights for a 3-point seat belt, which today saves tremendous lives all across in all fields of transportation. Having said that, then it was extremely exciting for us when we found that Land Transport Authority Singapore, LTA as it is well known, in Singapore, as a trailblazer in public transport, started to look at being the first one in the world to have autonomous driving on a full, large-scale electric bus which can carry 80+ passengers. And I think with their guidance and support, this is what brought us here. Over the last 5 to 6 years, we've been working with this. We started this in January 2018. And as Volvo Group and as Volvo Buses, we do this in conjunction with NTU, the Nanyang Technology University here. And we have actually 2 buses. The first one runs on a test track in NTU, created by LTA, which actually copies the normal road conditions on the roads, on public roads. And that is running well. So this first bus in the world was already started out in January. So together between Volvo and NTU, we are developing autonomous driving solutions on a Volvo platform. And then going forward, we are introducing the second bus now, again, as a part of this project, in one of the big operators, SMRT, here in one of their bus depots, to try autonomous driving with an electric bus in a depot environment.
I should mention as well that this bus that you are working on, as you say, is in the testing phase, should be able to charge its own battery, drive through the depots to the vehicle park, and park, so entirely autonomously. Volvo, though, as you alluded to, it is known for its safety. What about those obstacles? Pigeons aside, probably not on the main streets of Singapore, but what happens if somebody steps in front of the bus, if somebody is disabled and takes longer to get on and off the bus, or if a car brakes suddenly? How do you address those concerns that the public might have about getting on an autonomous bus?
Well, that's a good question, and I would say that one way or the other, some of the panelists addressed it earlier. So, I mean, first of all, AI or autonomous is not brought in because it's just a technology. I think autonomous is a technology from our side which actually value adds to improve one core area, and that is, let's say, first safety, over and above the improving the efficiency and so on and so forth. So 90% of the accidents which probably happen are one or the other way related to the human causes, or maybe the driver, and AI improves that further. So I would say that, yes, there is a big road to travel ahead. There are 5 levels, level 1 to 5. Level 5 is when you have a full autonomous public transport vehicle available running on the roads. I think the world is still quite far away from there. There are three key areas when it comes to autonomous. One is, of course, the technology in itself, and I think that technology today is being well investigated with a lot of people working on it. The second area is regulations, and I think that there are no harmonized regulations around the world, which countries need to work together. There's a lot of work happening there, but there's still a way to go. The third most important area is societal impact on autonomous, which you also said about people having the comfort to get into. And I think that societal impact is still in its early stages, and that's an area to get into. Then to come specifically into the hindrances, as you said, be it a pigeon or a pedestrian coming in, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That's why the trials are very much at this stage restricted to confined environments. So for confined environments, the trials go on, but they are still not there when it comes to coming onto the public roads. I think that it will still take some time for the technology to make it possible to be out there, but we very much continue to work with it.
And do you have a time frame for when you think that would be rolled out?
Well, I saw in the last one there were 1 year to 5 years. I think
She
5
said
years was
more than one, less than 20. That was quite a broad range.
And my view is 5 years is still optimistic.
Yeah.
I would say that for us in Volvo, we say maybe a decade. But of course, let's not forget that probably 10 years back, the products or a public transport bus was more mechanical. Today, it's more electronic and electrical. Today, it has normal features like a lane departure system, pedestrian warning system, cruise control system. So it's not a zero start. The levels are increasing. So even if we reach full automation maybe in 10, 15 years, there will be many more levels which will get added on in terms of technology, which will benefit the operator, the driver, and the traveling public.
I guess a question, and I have to have full disclosure, as you said, some of the questions have been asked before. I haven't been here, I've been at Bloomberg all day, so excuse me if I am asking questions that have been asked, but in terms of, AI taking over jobs, so to speak, is this a concern for people that work in the mass transport sector if you're saying that you've got buses that are going to park themselves, drive themselves, wash themselves?
First, let me say that if we have full autonomous, in normal traffic conditions, the congestion would still not vanish if you continue to do it on self-driven vehicles. That's where public transport system has a big role, and that is where LTA is focused not on individual vehicles in Singapore, and also a lot of governments in other parts of the world focusing very much on public transportation, so that along with autonomous, they can look into not only optimizing the traveling time, but also reducing congestion, making better environment and higher safety. Coming on to your question then, primarily in a depot area, a bus would be expected to charge itself if it's electric, wash itself, and park itself.
Yeah.
But the question which always comes in our public transportation arena for Volvo, and I guess for others also, is what will happen to a driver? Will a driver exist or not? That is a large part of a workforce of any bus operation today. And from our point of view, I would say that from our point of view, next 10 to 15 years, we don't see that happening. I think most of the aircrafts can operate by themselves today, or most of the technology, but we all sitting inside an aircraft still want very much a pilot to be there because we feel safe.
Yeah.
And that is very much even case more so when it comes to buses when they're traveling on road. So what will happen is, of course, that the fatigue level for drivers will improve with more autonomous applications being added onto buses. They will have less to do, which means that they'll be more focused on road. That will improve safety. And then, if the bus depot will be something which can be taken on in a confined area by itself through autonomous, the driver is more available on the road to drive the buses longer. And that is a challenge which transport companies face with availability of drivers today, and that would improve the efficiency by 20–30%.
And of course, that time gives you time as well to try and get the public's trust, if you will, about buses driving themselves. Singapore's Minister for Environment told Bloomberg last week that taking mass transit is a better climate change solution than tooling around in one of Elon Musk's Tesla electric vehicles. Now, this after Musk criticised Singapore on Twitter earlier in the year for being slow to adopt EVs. Now, what is your response to that? Do you think that we are going to see a move back towards mass transit, which is obviously going to be better for the environment if we have these very efficient autonomous vehicles. Because as we just heard in the previous session, you know, I'm a Platinum Grab driver, Platinum Grab customer, and a lot of people are taking these ride-hailing apps. What brings them back to buses?
Well, firstly, I think if I just stay on Singapore, I think Singapore is very forward-looking, and that's what brings us as Volvo here. That's what brought me to move our headquarters from Sweden, where it has been for the last 80 years, for our international business into Singapore last year, because Singapore is forward-looking. LTA already, as a lot of us know, has a master plan 2040, which also covers a lot of areas, including last mile connectivity, as well as the next steps onto autonomous buses or autonomous public transport. And having said that, I wouldn't agree with the Elon Musk statement, because I think that even the lady sitting here from Grab was surprised that everyone said that in 5 years they'll be willing to sit in a car which is driverless. It wouldn't happen that fast. So Singapore is very much forward-looking. I think that what will happen in Singapore is that with the Land Transport Authority already having much mature plans, we are already in discussion, and so are others, to have kind of a public road transport autonomous solution already 2022. I think, of course, that's still too early, but the government here is very much focusing on that, pushing for that, and they are clear that they would like to reduce congestion. They would like to discourage the use of private transport. The only way it can do it, and why you and me end up taking Grab, is that the last mile connectivity today with trains and buses is not absolutely certain. There is always a need to probably walk back home or find another mode of transport. The more we can find last mile connectivity from end to end for a traveler to travel from one place to another, the sooner public transport will become as the more desired source. Not that it is bad today. I think in Singapore, 80% of the people still travel by buses and as well as trains, and we can only improve from there to a better level.
Let's check in with the poll and see what everybody is thinking about, what they're most looking forward about the future of autonomous driving. We've got 31% saying expected reduction in traffic, which is good because that's kind of the topic of our panel. But also this one that's interesting, 24% saying the ability to work while driving. Now, it does kind of get to that point that we just alluded to and what Grab was alluding to as well. But is that, you know, something that is feasible that we see in our lifetimes, in our working lifetimes, where you are in a car doing work on the way to work while a car is driving you?
As a busman, I don't like cars, even if I drive one, so I will answer it most from a bus point of view.
Well, you can on a bus,
So I would say that, firstly, this is already happening.
Yeah.
It's so obvious that already the number of registrations or the requests for driving licenses around the world, including Singapore, is going down from what it was 5 or 10 years back. The reason for that, or the key reason for that, is people are more keen that they can spend time on their other work, which is personal devices, rather than spending time sitting in congestion and driving a car or a bus from one place to another. The second thing which is happening is, at least in buses, in selected things in Singapore, but in a lot of places in the world, that you already have iPads behind the bus seats. So when people get in, they have Wi-Fi available inside the buses. They have iPads available already attached behind the seats. So when you're sitting on a seat and traveling from one place to another, you can do what you like. And I think that this will become more prevalent, because more and more we're looking for more of our private space and private things to do. And I think that would happen very much in the public transport and the bus arena.
I'm hearing that our social media addictions are not going to die off anytime soon then. You mentioned you are a bus man. You and I were talking earlier about Hong Kong and what has been happening there. A little bit of a reprieve, I guess, in terms of sentiment overnight, but there is a lot of geopolitical concerns going on with Hong Kong, with Brexit, with the trade dispute. How worried are you about that on the impact of your business and on the impact of autonomous? Are you seeing any effect so far?
First of all, on the global level, I think we as Volvo Group and Volvo Buses see that there is a downtrend coming. There are things related to US-China trade policies, customs duties, world impact, and so on and so forth. So there is obviously a down cycle which we are all looking at. Then coming to specific issue on Hong Kong, I think it's a very special one. And I would say that I have not got a call from our operator, the largest operator, which manages almost 90% of Hong Kong bus transportation, that things have gone down. So I guess that the impact probably still at this stage is not huge. However, things like these in the long term do tend to affect business. My own guess is that because most of the demonstrations are happening towards the airport, therefore the city is still running free, and these are happening normally during the weekends. The other days are quite okay. On the other hand, on the lighter side, if I could say, I think probably the traffic for our bus operator in Hong Kong is slightly gone up because the demonstrations are in the airport, so people are taking more buses to get there, and therefore more need for buses.
There is always an upside, isn't there? In terms of risks, though, you know, it doesn't look like the US-China dispute at any point is going away. We did have a little bit of upside of how perhaps they're going to meet now in October, but most people saying, look, this is going to be with us for at least another year in the lead up to the 2020 election. When you look at risks for Volvo in the next 12 months, is that one of them, and what are some of the other risks that you're looking at?
I think for us as Volvo Group and Volvo buses, the main risk, of course, is how is the economy performing world over. So this was just one of the factors which you pointed out. Then there are parts of the world where there could be unrest. There are parts of the world where the GDP growth at this moment is going down. There are parts of the world which are affected because climatic conditions. And all these add up for the economy to have a little bit of a slowdown compared to what it was in the last couple of years, because they have been really good for us and I guess for most of the businesses. So these are the trends which show to us, and we can clearly see some things, not only us, I guess all the automobile manufacturers on their order books, that they start to go down. This is part of life. It comes in for a couple of years. We as global companies are well tuned to take care of it, and we are already doing so in a good way. So I think that that phase will come, and then we will move on to the next better phase of life.
And speaking of moving on, we heard in that Grab conversation as well, if someone is faster, smarter or better than you, you partner with them. Is there anyone that you think in this autonomous vehicle driving space is faster, smarter, better than Volvo?
Good question, and maybe I should have spoken a little about it earlier. So I think the big difference between today and yesterday is that yesterday we did everything ourselves.
Yeah.
Being in this field for 9 decades, we are primarily coming in from the combustion engine side, driving technologies now towards electric, autonomous, and connectivity. And that's the next phase which we already are living in, and that will be the main part of life going forward. Having said that, I think today we don't do everything ourselves. So to give you an example, in the city of Gothenburg in Sweden, there is a line which runs from one part of the city to another one. It's a complete electric line. It's running for the last 4 years. And this line is built to have more or less environment-friendly buses, zero emission if possible, and everything is done with 23 partners together. So when you see our example with Singapore, it's LTA, SMRT, NTU, and Volvo together. When we look at our examples on certain truck autonomous models, they are with 5 or 7 collaborators. We as Volvo Group have announced things with NVIDIA and so on and so forth. So collaboration and partnership is the way of life. I think there are many innovators sitting around the world. We are quite smart, probably not the smartest, but the future for us is to be smarter than everyone by collaborating and trying to get the best and optimized solutions for our customers and end traveling public out there in the market.
Akash, Passey, thank you so much. I just want to check in before we finish on the poll about what impresses everybody the most about the future of autonomous driving. I think it was still leading with an expected reduction in traffic, which obviously is going to be positive news for the bus industry. If we could just get that poll coming up, or did we get the result already? Is it a one-time wonder? Might be. There we go. 30.4%, not much change. Expected reduction in traffic. Akash Passey, Senior Vice President, Volvo Bus Corporation, thank you so much for joining us at Bloomberg Sooner Than You Think.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and patience.